Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode will be the Week 4 Ravens recap. Before we jump in, please make sure you press that follow button right here on Spotify, as well as rate the podcast, and check out my Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron, where I post every update for when a new podcast releases, as well as a couple other posts throughout the week. So make sure you guys check that out. As always, thank you all for listening. And let's jump into the Ravens recap on Week 4, as well as kind of take a look at their opponent for Week 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and, a little bit of insight into what that game is going to look like and potentially some keys for success for the Baltimore Ravens. So on Sunday, Week 4, the Baltimore Ravens took care of business in Cleveland against the Browns, 28-3. This game did have a kind of late week injury development with Deshaun Watson, and he was actually unable to go. So the Browns did start quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He played the entire game against that Baltimore defense and our Ravens. But their coaching staff said they didn't even have to tweak the game plan, too much. It's not like they were entirely removing or adding different pieces. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson actually played pretty solid throughout his preseason playing time back in August there for Cleveland. So let's jump in. Ravens Offensive Player of the Week for the Baltimore Ravens offense. Mark Andrews, 5 receptions for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's definitely nice to have him back. He's been, continuing to do his thing that we've seen now for many years, still being old reliable for quarterback Lamar Jackson, who very easily could have also been, the Ravens Offensive Player of the Week. He put up incredible numbers, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes here. But Mark Andrews, even with all the new weapons, is kind of that safe security blanket for Lamar. Since, Lamar's been in the league, they are both, been tearing it up together. And they obviously have a lot more chemistry, and Lamar is probably looking there more on third downs. They've been working together now for, this their 6th season. While Odell and Zay Flowers may be more shifty, I wouldn't necessarily say better hands, because Mark Andrews has great hands. But, Lamar and Mark Andrews have been working with each other for several years, they have that same wavelength in terms of improvisation, and they understand what each other are going to do in each situation. So Mark Andrews, Player of the Week here for the Baltimore Ravens with 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Defense Player of the Week for the Baltimore Ravens this week, Roquan Smith had 10 tackles, as well as 2 very big pass deflections that he was just a half a step behind, having 2 interceptions there even. So 10 tackles, 2 pass deflections for Roquan Smith. Had an excellent game. Once again, the Baltimore Ravens defense has been absolutely incredible since that acquisition of Roquan last year. The Ravens defense only allowed 3 points again. So Roquan's been a huge addition to the Baltimore Ravens defense and is proving it here with his 2nd Defensive Player of the Week for the Wedge 52 Gridiron in only 4 weeks of this 2023 season here. So now let's go a little bit about this Ravens offense. A couple players besides Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson had a very good day. Like I mentioned, he went 15 for 19, 186 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, as well as 9 rushes for 27 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. A total of over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns for Mr. Lamar. Excellent numbers. It's definitely nice to see Lamar, kind of returning to what we all know as Ravens fans and have seen, his highest potential there with his play style. And of course, he did this without wide receivers, Odell Beckham Jr., without Rashad Bateman, who were both out this week. We also, Ronnie Stanley was a no-go. Marlon Humphrey was out. Center Tyler Linderbaum was back. He played, pretty well. It was definitely nice to have him back. He has looked very solid throughout his 2 years here so far, year and 4 games, and has received high praise from many teammates about his capabilities, as well as coaching staff about his potential capabilities for his career outlook here. Gus Edwards had 15 carries for 48 yards, as well as Justice Hill had 3 carries for 33 yards, and Zay Flowers had 3 catches for 56 yards. Had a very nice one along the sidelines, kind of rerouted on a Lamar, had a not quite a scramble, but had a release from the pocket because of pressure. And Zay Flowers had a very nice redirect on his route, a nice catch along the sideline, as well as Zay Flowers put on another nice shifty move, on that right side of the field. Shook 2 defenders, looped back in to get the first down for that one, I believe. So very good right there. Like I said, Deshaun Watson was out. He had a shoulder injury that kind of developed, later in the week. And then he tried to warm up for the game, and they very early decided that he was going to be a no-go against the Ravens on Sunday. But that Ravens defense, regardless, only allowed 1 field goal. They had 4 sacks, 3 interceptions. The Ravens defense looked incredible the entire game. And it's really, this is kind of like Ravens defense has looked very solid throughout the season so far. They're definitely looking nice. Definitely a good compliment. And they're doing it all without Marlon Humphrey, who is going to be a huge addition to that cornerback rotation, even though Brandon Stevens has been playing really well. And then also Marcus Williams has been out, but Geno Stone as well has been filling in, playing very, very good for that Marcus Williams spot at safety. Dorian Thompson-Robinson on the day had 19 for 36, 121 yards, no touchdowns, obviously, and those 3 interceptions. The Browns defense, who was, ranked among the top of the league, first heading into week 4, they were ranked first in points allowed, yards allowed, rushing and passing yards allowed. And the Baltimore offense, even though, somewhat depleted ourselves, no Ronnie Stanley to help that offensive line. No Odell Beckham, an elite weapon. No Rashad Bateman, The Baltimore offense still put up 28 points and had 296 total yards of offense. So great day for that Ravens offense, who, looked good without all of our pieces even there, really. And we held Myles Garrett in check for the most part. He had just 2 tackles on the day, 1 sack, and he did get flagged for being offsides twice while trying to get every advantage he can against backup tackle Pat McCarry. So excellent job by that Ravens offensive line and the Ravens offensive unit in general. Kind of showing up that the Ravens offense can still function and can still show lots of potential against a very good defense. Part of the reason why that Browns defense potentially gave up a lot more was because the Ravens defense was very good, shut down that Browns offense. Yes, it was not Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson hasn't even been playing amazing. He's had a couple good games. Also had a pretty bad game against those Pittsburgh Steelers. So take that with what you will. But the Ravens defense looked very solid. Quite a few 3-and-outs and punts. Obviously, the 3 interceptions. So that Browns defense was on the field a lot more this past Sunday against the Ravens than they had been in the couple weeks prior, against those Bengals, against the Titans, I believe. And that definitely plays into some effect in terms of their defensive production and just the amount of snaps they had to take. The Ravens on defense did sign Kyle Van Noy this past week before the Sunday game because of David Ojabo. He was out this game. Odafe Owe was also out this game. So they need a little bit more depth in that edge positioning there. And they signed Kyle Van Noy, and he actually did suit up and play. He recorded one pass deflection, no tackles, no sacks, but, pass deflection. And, looked solid in terms of, setting the edge out there. So definitely expect to see Van Noy, getting some more reps in these next few weeks. And that kind of leads me to my last point here with the Ravens. They should be getting healthier soon. A couple setbacks, but also a couple of hopefuls coming real soon here. David Ojabo, like I just mentioned. Coach Harbaugh, David Ojabo was placed on IR. I believe that was before the game. I believe that was Saturday or Friday, which kind of made room for the Van Noy, bump up in signing there. Ojabo, from Coach Harbaugh's words, were Ojabo could potentially be a season-ending injury. It's a knee and an ankle is what it kind of sounds like. In terms of updates on players that left the game on Sunday, Morgan Moses, Jalen Armour-Davis, and Daryl Worley. None of them are expected to be serious long-term issues. Harbaugh said there's not quite an update ready for those. There should be. The coaching staff should get a decent kind of reflection or understanding on where they're going to be at for a Week 5 matchup based on Wednesday's practice and Thursday's practice. So we're kind of just waiting for that. Odell Beckham should be close to a return. He was on the field before the game against the Browns, warming up, running routes at full speed. Looked good. So Odell should be close. Marlon Humphrey should be close. There was a chance Marlon could have played last week against the Browns, but they decided he wasn't quite ready for whatever reason. So Marlon Humphrey should be close. If not this week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would think, hopefully, against the Titans. And then I haven't really heard anything on Rashad Bateman in terms of his status. So just keep an eye on his practice availability Wednesday, Thursday, especially. And then outside linebacker Tyus Bowser could be approaching a return to practice, as well as running back Keaton Mitchell could be approaching a return to practice as well. So definitely some positive outlooks in terms of the Ravens' health. Marcus Williams, I project, is still going to miss another week or two, but potentially, a good handful of guys coming back within the next week or two. Ronnie Stanley included in that as well. So moving on to our next opponent, just kind of an overview of what happened in their Week 4 matchup. What we have is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost to the Texans this week, 30-6. The Steelers really just did not look great in any aspect of the game. One thing that's very noteworthy that's going to affect the Ravens matchup here is quarterback Kenny Pickett for the Steelers. He left late in the third quarter with a knee injury. Early reports are saying that Kenny Pickett is going to miss a couple of weeks, which means the Baltimore Ravens will face former Chicago Bears quarterback Mitch Trubisky, who the Ravens have played before as a Pittsburgh Steeler as well. But before Kenny Pickett went out, he was having, an average to below average day. 15 for 23, 114 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. So Kenny Pickett looking like He's going to be out for a few weeks. Outside of Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris had 103 total yards, and safety Minkah Fitzpatrick had 11 tackles. TJ Watt only had a couple tackles, I believe. I don't think any sacks. But rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud of those Houston Texans had himself a day against that Steelers defense, going 16 for 30, 306 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns with no interceptions. The Steelers, they've been struggling all season. In terms of the eye test, they've been struggling all season. However, they are 2-2. So definitely not to be slept on, as the Steelers never are, with the AFC North divisional rivalry there. The Ravens and Steelers, most of the time is a good, close, hard-fought battle. But a couple of Ravens keys to the game that I believe the Ravens could help. If they execute these, it would greatly help their chances of beating the Pittsburgh Steelers this Sunday in Pittsburgh. So another divisional road game for the Baltimore Ravens here, back-to-back. The first one is going to be Baltimore's run game. The run game has still looked very good under Todd Monken. Monken's not going to try and completely remove or change the power run game, kind of RPO style thing with Lamar, because obviously that works, and Lamar Jackson's our quarterback who has great success with the RPOs. So Monken hasn't changed, the basics and the style of our running game, just a little bit in terms of the usage, and, changed up a little bit of things in terms of assignments on some of those, or formations. For example, we've seen a lot more under center. Didn't see it as much against the Browns, but Monken, has done well with our run game that we've already established. But that'll definitely be a big key to the Baltimore's chances for success, as Pittsburgh's defense is 29th in the league in rushing yards allowed at 152 yards per game. And that Baltimore offense, they're ranked 5th in terms of rushing yards per game at 158. So if the Baltimore Ravens continue to run the ball at that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, that would be the first Ravens keys there. The second one is going to be containing TJ Watt. Cannot let him get going crazy like he, has the potential to do. Obviously, one of the better defensive end edge guys in the league. If the Ravens did, even, half of what they did with Myles Garrett, I think that would be great. Garrett had 2 tackles and a sack. If we can contain Watt to that, or as close to that as possible, I think that will put the Baltimore Ravens offense in a very good position, not only in terms of running the ball, but if we do establish that run and we're doing solid on TJ Watt, that's going to slow down his pass rush, give Lamar Jackson more time, more comfort, ability to be able to make his couple reads. If they're not reads aren't there, find the open lane like Lamar does. And then the third key to, I believe, the Ravens' success here with this one is going to be starting the game fast and clean. Cannot have any, Colts type of situations against those Indianapolis Colts at home. 2 weeks ago, the Ravens kind of struggled early on, had the fumbles, we're just dealing with, starting slow, really. That ended up biting us, because you let a decent team, or a team that, has potentially less talent than you do, hang around in there. This Pittsburgh Steelers, especially, but more than the Colts even. That Steelers coaching staff, Mike Tomlin, just the Steelers in general, if they're in contention to, have a shot at winning a game, they're going to find a way if you let them hang in there. So I believe the Baltimore Ravens need to start fast, start clean, really, protect the football the first quarter and a half, 2 quarters. Get out to a nice early lead, and don't really give the Steelers any sort of window there to get into the game and make it a game, later in that second half. So those are my 3 Ravens keys to help them be successful. In summary, establish the run game, contain TJ Watt, and start the game clean, fast, no turnovers in that first quarter first quarter and a half, especially. So that's all I have for my Week 4 Ravens recap. If you made it this far, thank you all for listening. If you're not a Ravens fan, but are a fan of the NFL, please make sure you tune in to tomorrow's episode, which will be my league-wide recap on Week 4, as well as I'll be announcing my him performance of the week. So thank you all for listening. Once again, please make sure you press that follow button right here on Spotify, and go Ravens.